1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue Podcast Soundcheck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue Podcast Soundcheck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hello and welcome to the Royal Blue Podcast. It's the Friday show ahead of Everton's trip to Stamford Bridge in the Saturday 12:30 kickoff. I am your host Ian Croll, and joining me live in the Royal Blue studio today, we've got Chris Beesley. Chris, how are things? All good?
Yeah, I think all those last lingering doubts about relegation banished now officially, so we can hopefully enjoy the rest of the season and Goodison's final days in the way it should be celebrated.
Absolutely, and you will be in attendance for David Moyes' 1:30 press conference. Are you going to wish him a happy birthday? He's 62 years old today.
Yeah, many happy returns to David. Like you say, 62 today. Celebrated both his 40th and 50th birthdays in the Everton manager's job, and there he is back again. So yeah, I don't know if we can get him a slice of cake. I don't know. He keeps going on about these bottles of red wine that he likes. I don't know. Get that back on X's, but yeah, yeah. I'll be wishing David many happy returns. I mean, last week when I was there, he's been saying this to me for nearly 20 years. I did say this to him. He commented, he said, did I have my dad's suit on at the time? I says, we've been saying that for nearly 20 years, which we have, on and off.
Maybe you can just stop off at Sainsbury's on the way or something like that, get him a little bottle of red wine, or a big bottle, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Also on the podcast, we've got Paul Wheelock. Paul, how are things?
Yeah, good, mate. The sun's shining, isn't it? Nice day.
Yeah.
Safe from relegation, yeah. No complaints.
Absolutely. It feels like there's a little bit to speak about, but just because, like, mathematically safe now, it's kind of like, what's next for Everton? Obviously, we know what's next. It's Chelsea. Couple of big announcements in terms of ownership, which we'll go into, but obviously got the final game as well at Goodison now, which has finally been confirmed. Are you happy with the date and time?
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it, really? Because I could see the arguments for having maybe later on a Sunday, but then maybe a Monday night. But I think it's probably the best. It's in its own time slot, isn't it? Yeah. And then obviously, we can get to the ground early, and then in the afternoon we've got hours to celebrate it. So yeah, pretty happy in the end. What
about you? Happy?
Yeah, I think whenever it was going to be,
just needed the announcement.
Somebody was going to be kicking off about something, weren't they? I think, but the general feeling tends to be that Sunday was better than the Monday night, because that would have left very little time, wouldn't it, to sort of have any sort of post game, whatever people are going to do. So yeah, you can't, with it being the high noon kick-off at 12, there's going to be plenty of time for whatever people want to do after the final whistle.
High noon.
Wow. High noon showdown,
yeah.
Good job there's no relegation battles
I
anything.
I don't think I could have taken that.
No.
That wouldn't have been fitting, would it? Of the ground, English football's first purpose-built ground, and the venue, which is staged more top-flight fixtures than anything else. So thankfully, 123rd record season to look forward to in the top flight at the new stadium there, for all those doubters who bored us all with best stadium in the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would have completely ruined it. I mentioned this on Wednesday. You can go back to listen to mine and Tony's podcast on Wednesday, because we go in depth about the time and date. But I'm looking forward to the Ipswich game more than the actual final game, because I just feel it's going to be quite sad. It's going to be quite emotional. Yeah. Whereas the Ipswich game at home, it's the last 3 p.m. Hopefully the sun will be shining and we can just kind of enjoy that. And then obviously we know what's coming after that. I mean, in terms of today's show, the agenda, we're obviously going to look ahead to Saturday's match. We are recording before David Moyes' pre-Chelsea press conference, so we're not entirely going to get any updates on injury news. Chris will provide that on the website following this afternoon. But we have still, got plenty to get through. And as always, give us a thumbs up, drop us a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Please get your questions in. As always, I will try to read out as many as possible. Chris, before we do get going, a couple of plugs, I guess, to to make a song and dance about. We've got another episode of Goodison Park, My Home, in the bag, this time with Everton's last trophy winning captain. Do you want to?
Go on. Of course, yeah. Gav Buckland said he believes he's Everton's last bona fide legend. Of course, if you've not already worked it out, it's Dave Watson. Yeah, Dave Waggy Watson. Was sat here earlier this week, and delighted to get him on. Like you said, member of Everton's last title winning side as well, and in his first season at Goodison Park, he'd returned to Merseyside after starting out at Liverpool. Of course, won the League Cup with Norwich City, came for a record fee to Goodison, and Kevin Ratcliffe said he was the best centre half he ever played alongside. So great accolade there coming from Everton's most successful captain. So yeah, we've got Dave Watson in, and he tells a great tale as well about what happened with the FA Cup the night he won it. So yeah, we're looking forward to that one. Delighted to get him in the bag.
And without spoiling it too much, he actually really likes the accolade of being Everton's last trophy winning captain, doesn't he?
It didn't quite kind of go, I wanted that one, but yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'm sure deep down he'd like to let that one go, but he's obviously very proud of it. Yeah, as anyone would be, the fact that he is Everton's last trophy-winning captain. And personally, I'm sure, like thousands of us, I want him to lose that one as soon as possible. But he's very proud of that one.
Maybe not Dave, though.
Wouldn't like to fight him for.
You'll have to listen and watch to get that little antidote. Yeah. So we haven't got a date. We've recorded that, by the way, so that is in the bag. We just haven't got a date and time for when that's going to be coming, because we were umming and ahhing whether to put it out round about the actual date of the anniversary. But we might just get it out over the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. How old are you, Paul, when we won the cup last?
I would
30 years
13,
ago?
14, something like that. Yeah, feels a very long time ago. I still remember we didn't get tickets. Probably I wasn't the only one who was caught up in the ticket fiasco of trying to get an FA Cup final ticket. Stayed overnight around the streets of Goodison and just was stopped from getting the tickets to the last minute. The queue ended, so that wasn't a great memory, but certainly winning the cup. And then I think we were on Queen's Drive the Monday after, when it was obviously we paraded around the city. I can still remember, got a photo of me, my sister, and one of my best mates. Yeah, it feels like yesterday, but obviously it isn't. It's long overdue, another day like that, isn't it, really?
Absolutely. And just one final plug, Chris, before we do get going. Yesterday marked the 40th anniversary of the European Cup Winners' Cup semi-final. Second leg, the win over Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
And you, with a couple of friends, recorded a special podcast, which we put out yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, the three of us here are all old enough to remember Everton's last FA Cup win, but we're not, which is, unfortunately for the younger generation of Evertonians, that's something they don't have. But yeah, neither of us I don't know, Paul. You'd be quite young, wouldn't you? I certainly don't remember the Bayern Munich game.
Yeah, not actually remembering the game itself.
We had to bring in a couple of old stagers to help us out on that score. But yeah, our regular guest Gavin Buckland and of course David Prentice, they were both in the crowd at Goodison that night. And whether you were there or you weren't, so whether you want to look back on it and you remember in those great memories, or all the Evertonians who like Paul and myself, have grown up with those tales. It's widely regarded as the greatest night in Goodison Park's 133-year history. So young or old, I'm sure everyone will enjoy that one. Some great tales from Gavin and Dave, and interspersed with some great clips from the players from that night that we've collated over this season from Goodison Park, my home.
Okay, yeah, well, definitely go and give that a watch. You can see, if you're watching on YouTube, on the screen now, there is a little graphic to kind of commemorate that, I guess. So it's a picture of Howard Kendall with the celebration from Graham Sharp and Andy Gray with the big words Bayern. So you can't miss it. It is on the YouTube channel, and you can listen to it on the audio channel as well. We'll start, Chris, then with the two ownership team announcements, I guess, which we've heard this week. So two new faces this week have joined Everton's ownership team. The first is Christopher Sarafin, who joins the board as an observer, meaning he won't have any voting rights, but he will be on hand for the club and its owners to tap into almost 40 years worth of experience in investment and fund management. The aim of the move is to help Everton to continue to strengthen its financial base and build for the future. So that's appointment number one. The second appointment, which was yesterday, I think, is Jason Kidd. He's the head coach of the US basketball team, the Dallas Mavericks. Kidd has won the Olympic gold with the US national team in 2000 and 2008 and secured an NBA championships as a player with the Mavericks in 2011. Everton's executive chairman, Mark Watts, said the move will allow the Freakin Group to tap into expertise and understanding of high performance. So a lot of moving parts behind the scenes. What have you made of it?
Yeah, no, Jason Kidder, as he might be known now.
With every person, Chris loves to give them a nickname. It's like an affection thing, isn't it?
Well, God, we've got my namesake as well there, Big Christopher as well.
Yeah.
We've got the two. No, but what
Big
it is,
Christopher as well.
Big Chris.
It's all part. It's the Freakin Group using their stellar Texas connections as well. It's just like Texan sporting royalty, as it were. Like we say, we don't know in terms of hands-on roles for either of those. Obviously, Kid's still very much active in the NBA. He's a current head coach, isn't he, at the Dallas Mavericks, and a stellar playing career behind him as well. But I'm hoping that it can only be good to get these people, the kind of profiles on board for the club. Obviously, Liverpool have got LeBron James and have for some time now over as a part owner at Anfield. That's something that they've done with the FSG connections, and a similar sort of idea here, I guess, with the Freakin Group. And all that goes with that, like you mentioned, of the 40 years Big Christopher's got in terms of no, I know we're joking, but he's very serious businessman, a billionaire, I think, in his own right. And I think he can only be tapping into that sort of expertise can hopefully only be a good thing, and it shows you that the club are moving in the right direction, and certainly sort of people you'd want to be connected with the clubs. If you look at obviously what all the 777 and all that went with that, we're talking about serious people this time round. So hopefully it can only be good, and it's going to be the start of many changes on and off the pitch with Everton going forward, and it's just a sort of the continuation of that. Won't be long now until Angus Kinnear is obviously in place from Leeds United, leading things on a daily basis, and the Freakin Group getting their kind of people in, because it's obviously, like I said, they're so well connected within the US and in Texas in particular, obviously being Houston based, and they're tapping into that.
Is that what you think it is then, Paul? Just with regards to those two kind of appointments, it's more of like a consultant based type things, have as many allies as possible. Chris has alluded to there, as much expertise as you can, and advice that you can kind of touch upon. Contacts as well. I'm sure they've got contacts and allies elsewhere that maybe Everton and the Freakins can, input into the club as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just the knowledge base, isn't it, really? And it shows the vast contacts they've got and the kind of pull that they've got. And I think it's the big criticism we had of Mashiri over the years, even before it went very wrong and obviously ended up with a number of board members leaving, that it didn't feel like there was that expertise, or even just that kind of like knowledge base, or even just like fresh ideas, the fresh faces on there. Felt very stale for a number of years, didn't it really? And it's just all changed, and it's remarkable to think that they've only been in 5 months now, is it?
Yeah,
5
December,
months.
wasn't it? Yeah.
A lot's happened.
So much has changed behind the scenes. And I say Angus Kinnear's coming in. It seems like there's going to be kind of like a recruitment specialist. Hammond's been named, hasn't he? As widely as being that one, and they've got to work really quickly, haven't they? And that's impressive. I know the proof will be in the pudding in terms of results going forward and recruitment over the summer, but yeah, they're not messing about, are they? And I know they've been talking about plans for potentially Nelson Dock, and I think I was off last week, so there was an article talking about that they want to see Everton have took that area forward. You want the area to catch up, which I think we've all seen on the couple of times we've been there. There's still a lot of work to do down there, but they seem ambitious, don't they? They seem driven, and I think you said it there, Chris, they're serious people, aren't they? Yeah. So, yeah, it's really promising.
Emma's come up with a nickname for you. Chris the Butty Beesley.
The Butty?
The Butty. What do you think of that?
Well, fair enough.
What's on your butties today?
Shop bought one today because what it was, you see, we all got paid today, didn't we? Payday. Yeah. So you see, I wasn't treating myself. It was more of a case that the cupboard was bare ahead of payday.
Friday,
there's no bread in the house. So that's what it was.
Nightmare Friday scenario, especially when you've got to leave the office, Chris, to go to the press conference as well.
Exactly. That bottle of wine to buy for Davey as well. So.
Wine or butties.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, moving on a little bit, sticking with behind the scenes though, Kevin Thelwell is obviously still at the club, but he's been kind of reported that he's going to set to join Rangers.
Yeah, I think it's announced now, yeah.
I think the club announced this on the website as well.
Yeah, I think it's confirmed now, yeah.
But, I mean, I don't want to go too much into this because he's leaving and there's like so much happening behind the scenes, but what have you made of Thelwell's time? Well, we'll kind of put a bow on Thelwell leaving now, I guess, really.
They've been hits and misses, haven't they? He's been operating in very difficult circumstances, to be fair to him. And some of the buys have been good, some in the middle, and some not so good. We can look at the two ends of the spectrum. I think we were asked a few weeks ago what was his best buy, and I think Joe and I both went for James Tarkowski, his first signing, a free signing, and obviously it'll end this weekend. But so far, has played every Premier League game since he signed for the club. And the potential for Iliman Ndiaye to challenge for that status as well going forward, for all the promise that he offers. And then obviously the other end of the spectrum, you've got people like Neil Maupay, who just didn't fit in either as a player or a character at Everton. And then, like I said, there have been many in between that. So, I think it's a mixed bag for Thelwell. Going forward, I mean, personally, I've always had serious reservations about the director of football model. I think that it is obviously becoming more prevalent now in football, but for Everton in particular, it hasn't worked. And that hasn't always been down necessarily to the individual who's been director of football. I think under Mashiri, it was very difficult to do your job. I mean, it would interfere in terms of signings and in terms of the managers coming in, because if you've got a director of football, they should also be in charge of who the next manager is. So that's been an issue, and going forward, Everton are going to be sort of reverting back to the previous model, as it were, with David Moyes at the helm of that. And I'm happy in that respect. I think Moyes' track record for recruitment players, I'd have him ahead of any director of football personally. So I think Thelwell seems to be very well respected within the club, and certainly the players and staff seem to have a decent relationship with him. And like I said, a mixed bag in fairness to Kevin, what have been very difficult circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, he did have difficult conditions to work on, and he certainly divides opinion whether people thought his reign was successful, unsuccessful. For me, quite obvious that his stock rose considerably towards the end of his reign because of some of the players that he did bring in, and that weren't maybe being utilised. Obviously, you could probably look at O'Brien as one. We know Ndiaye, Chris has already mentioned them. But since Moyes has come in, some of those players that he did bring in have had a kind of new lease of life as well. So stock rose towards the end a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think it's resulted in him getting a really big job at Rangers, isn't it? Really, I know they're going through an ownership change in themselves, and it's a huge football club, isn't it? I know it's a 2-team league, but to a large extent, isn't it? Now with just them and Celtic, and has been for a number of years, but it's clearly his stock is good enough to go and get a job like that. I think. Yeah, looking back at his whole tenure, I always find it difficult, and I know Moyes, funnily enough, said it in your initial interview, Chris, when he was obviously out of work.
Yeah.
When we were talking about his memories of Goodison. I find the director of football position difficult because I imagine a director of football is in charge of the whole football operation at a training ground, but everyone just associates it with transfers. So you can you can do incredibly well in the market or really badly, and then that could be the opposite of what's going on with the academy and kind of like analysis and things like that, and all the other departments they have to look over. So I'm like you, Chris. I'm not always convinced by it because I think it's too associated with transfers, where it seems now like Everton are going to have a lot of different department heads, aren't they, reporting into, it sounds like Angus Kinnear, and then obviously into the board itself, and I quite like that model. If he was, you can imagine he was responsible for Ndiaye and O'Brien, because Ndiaye just didn't seem like much of a Dyche player, and then Dyche just didn't play at all, did he really? So if he was responsible for those two, like it seems like, fair play to him, and if he was responsible for Tarkowski, excellent. I think he's got some hits in there. I think he definitely had some misses, but I think overall he did a pretty good job. And I think it's similar with Dyche, isn't it? Really, I don't think either of them are leaving the club under a cloud worthy. I think most people recognise there might have been time for a change, particularly with Dyche. But they did good job in those first couple of seasons, particularly when it was very difficult. So yeah, good luck to him. I think it's good that we're all changing. I think it's a new era, isn't it? And I think it's probably best for Kevin and the club. But yeah, good luck to him.
Interesting that he's kind of going to a club in Rangers who might have to put out a few fires as well, similar to what he did with Everton.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think if you thought the scrutiny at Everton was big, it's another ball game up there, isn't it? Because they have to win every game, don't they? And at the moment, I think they're trailing Celtic by a big distance, aren't they, at the table? So yeah, if he thought the scrutiny here was big, good luck.
It'd be interesting what he does in terms of the manager, because like I said, if the director of football model's used properly, well, he should have a big input on who's the manager, and that's a massive call for them this summer. No, this isn't the Rangers podcast, but just looking in from the outside, Barry Ferguson's come in, and obviously he's a hugely popular former player there, but doesn't really seem to have the CV as a manager to be in a role anywhere near that size. So a massive call on that one, which direction they go in the summer, because as we said, it's a duopoly. It's only them and Celtic who can unfortunately win that league now, and other than that one season under Steven Gerrard, that's the only time I think they've broken it since they came back after they were to reform. So yeah, it's a massive decision for Thelwell who he decides to work with in terms of the manager going forward.
Absolutely. Continue to get your questions in on the live stream as always, and I'll try and read some out. Just a quick change in topic, something that we haven't discussed on the podcast, but I know we've done an article or two on. Howard Webb has given an explanation. Did you know this was coming, Chris? For obviously the Diego Jota goal in the Merseyside derby against Everton. So he basically believes that it was the correct decision to allow the goal. Obviously, we know that Diaz was in an offside position, but it wasn't given as offside because he wasn't interfering with play. I mean, did you expect anything else from the head of the PGMOL and his response?
No. I think what we've not sort of disputed throughout of this is I think that all of the people, the referees who know what the letter of the law is these days, have all said, yes, that was the correct decision, the letter of the law. I mean, that the main gripe has been that, as Peter Reid said, that the law's an ass, and if you're going to say that a player is not interfering with play because he didn't make an attempt to go for the ball, I mean, he's obviously in James Tarkowski's eye line. So I think anyone who's played the game at any sort of level just thinks that's a nonsense, and I think David Moyes has said that himself. So that's the problem. I don't think anybody is disputing, if you're saying, as a referee, that is the correct decision. I think they've said that, offside's been mucked about with so many times over the years that, okay, that is the correct decision then. I think the big gripe with Evertonians has been that's just a silly interpretation of the law, which sort of bears no sort of credibility with anyone who's played the game, and that's been the issue. That you can say, as I think David Moyes used the phrase, hide behind words, and that's what they've done. You say in the black and white of what it says in the rules of the game, the laws of the game. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I don't expect anything different there. But it wouldn't be nice just to have this clarified properly. I don't know when they get around the table and decide when they're going to change all these things again or whatever going forward. But yeah, it was ridiculous.
I don't think they will change it because of that, and I don't expect them to. But I'll still stand by, Paul, the fact that just because he didn't touch the ball, for me, he's still interfering with play because he forces Tarkowski into that error, basically.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely agree. Yeah, I didn't watch the show and probably never would, to be honest. But being in the job we are, you obviously, in my job, I have to probably, upload the article and check it over, kind of thing. So I did read. I think Matt did it, didn't he? Matt Jones earlier this week, and it was just, it'd be better if he came out and said, "Hey, listen, that's the law. That's the law, whether you agree with it or not." But he actually said himself that he didn't think he was interfering with play, which is just not true because, as you rightly said, Ian, like Tarkowski could see him behind him, didn't he? It changed his action.
He's walking back.
Yeah, he could change his action, and then the fact that a matter of seconds later, Diaz back heels it into Jota's pass. And I know he did a lot from then. Credit to him for his finish, but it wouldn't have happened if the flag had been raised. But yeah, as I think I agree with Peter Reid, the law's an ass, isn't it? Yeah. Really, but I can't really take that programme seriously anymore. I don't see what benefit it brings really to the football. It's just another piece of content, isn't it? In kind of like the never-ending cycle of football stuff. But yeah, it's just not for me.
It's like the referees are marking their own homework.
Yeah, that's the phrase.
It's been pointed out here, sorry, that the Blues YouTube channel says Gav thought it was onside. So I do wonder if he's listening today.
Gav likes to be. I'm a big fan of Gav, but he does like to be contrary at times, doesn't he?
He does, but we love him. That's why we have him on the podcast. Okay, let's just. We could probably do a whole podcast in itself on this, Chris. But contracts. A couple of weeks ago, Moyes was like, nothing's getting sorted. Nothing even is going to be talked about until safety is secure. So. Obviously, safety is mathematically secure now, despite a couple of games still being left of the season. I guess 2 questions. I won't ask you for the full rundown of everyone who's leaving the club.
To remember them all off the top of my head,
I've got the list here. So what I'd say is, how quick do you expect some contracts to be, re-signed? And if there's say at least 1 or 2 key players who are out of contract that you think we should re-sign, you don't have to go through the whole list, but
yeah. I think the one that springs to mind is Idrissa Gueye, and that's obviously, I understand the club want to get it done. They're offering, but I also understand that there could be lucrative offers on the table from Saudi Arabia. So it could be the one that I guess most people want to get done. You don't know whether it will get done. I think Moyes did say a week ago that it would get done in good time, wouldn't be left till the last minute. And now that they obviously have secured that Premier League safety, these conversations can take place now, can't they? So that's the main one. I think we've been through Abdoulaye Doucouré. He'd be one personally. I'd be willing to keep on reduced wages, given that they obviously haven't taken up the option on that one. So it seems obvious that Everton aren't willing to keep him on the existing wages, as they would have kept him on, and just taken up that option on that one. And then obviously the old chestnut, which is Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but it would appear if all the sort of sounds coming out of it is that ship appears to have sailed. I might be wrong, but for a long time, it was a long time ago, it was made it known that the offer had been made to Calvert-Lewin's people, but that one's remained unsigned for a long time. I don't know. It's not a case of actually being a piece of paper there that just hasn't had a signature on the end, but the offer was made a long time ago, my understanding, and I don't think that one's happening. So, yeah. Idrissa Gueye would be the one I think myself, like a lot of people, would like to see done, but it's whether he decides at his stage going to be 36 in September that, the chance of one last payday for him in Saudi Arabia might be too tempting for him.
Dominic Calvert-Lewin's interesting still, isn't it? Despite him, because he's out of the picture, being injured, and the club have offered a deal which he seems to have, rejected, or I don't know whether... Would you expect the club go back to the negotiating table with him? I just find it interesting with him because we know how much quality strikers cost these days. You're looking at 40, 50 million probably to sign someone. We know Calvert-Lewin's record is not the best in terms of front of goal. We know his injury record's not the best, but we could be left with just a Schmitti and a Beto, and then you don't know who. There's no guarantees of bringing anyone in. Should the club go back in with a different offer for Calvert-Lewin?
It's difficult, isn't it, because of the injury? I think if he hadn't got injured, we'd probably be having a different conversation now, because I think in a Moyes team, I think we've seen it in the first few games, didn't he? He scored one against Tottenham. Yeah. But even
and Brighton, he played well, even though he got injured then.
Even the Villa game, I remember him having chances. Kind of thing. It was like, oh, wow, this is, whereas I know he was rightly criticised earlier this season for the chances he missed, but let's face it, he was a bit of traditional football, wasn't he, on the Dykes this season? So always felt for Everton centre forward playing like that. I don't know. I think he's still Everton's best centre forward. I'd be happy for him to stay at the club, but I think it's been so quiet for so long, and now that the injury has probably even lessened the conversation even more among supporters. No way of having it now. It's a good one to have, because I'm with you, Ian. I think there's a lot of, not issues, but there's a lot of things to be done this summer. I know it gives Everton kind of like a blank canvas, and that's quite exciting, but there's so much to be done in terms of the squad.
Again, sorry, with probably little funds. I think people think we're going to have millions and millions.
From what Joe's reported, hasn't he? He said up until the end of June, we've got to be careful, because we've obviously still got the big losses involved with these current accounts. Maybe after that, it looks like it's going to be eased off a little bit. But yeah, you can't, this summer, we can't just go and spend 250 million, can we? And that's why I think, I can understand the Doucouré arguments. Definitely want to keep Idrissa Gueye, and I could understand the Calvert-Lewin one. but I just get the impression that I think he fancies. I don't know him. I have no inside information, but the fact that it went so long unsigned even before the injury and the changes kind of gets the feeling that he might fancy a change. And I think there will be a market out there for him. I think our sister paper in Newcastle, the Chronicle, have already said, haven't they, in recent weeks, that Newcastle could still be an option. I think Arsenal could be an option. I think maybe Tottenham, maybe a West Ham, and I think it's just coming to an end. And that'd be a real shame. That I hope he gets back fit for potentially the Southampton big game, because he scored some really big goals for the club, and he's been a great signing. You know, a couple of million from Sheffield United. He's more than paid his fee back. If the conversation's there to be had, I'd be having it, yeah. But I get the feeling that it won't be.
Where can he go, Chris? Other than, I mean, Paul's just mentioned Newcastle. Where can he go where it's like, I'm going to get regular first team football that is better than a club like Everton? Newcastle, he's not getting in ahead of Isak. He's a replacement for what's his name? Wilson, who's always injured anyway. Yeah. So he's playing second fiddle there. I've heard Arsenal being muted as well. Again, they're going to have to be looking for a 60, 70 million pound striker. They might be able to get him in as backup. I just don't see where he goes, where he thinks. Maybe he might think not playing regularly is a good fit for him. And he's on quite a lot of money anyway.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, he could always go abroad, couldn't he, as well? You don't know. Being on a Bosman, that sort of frees him up, doesn't it? Gives him a lot more options. And if he'd been... Because that was the problem last summer. Everton were in talks. Newcastle United, Minter was going to go the other way in a Part X, and they couldn't agree terms over that. But all of a sudden, when he goes on a free, he does have those options. And like you said, maybe he thinks with his body at this stage that might suit him. You know, like you say, maybe going to Arsenal as the backup striker or something like that. So, yeah, I think what Paul said, the conversations it's been quiet for a long time now. So I just feel my inkling would be that he fancies a fresh start. You said it's up to Dominic Calvert-Lewin to decide where that is and whether the grass is greener on the other side. For you got to also think from Everton's point of view, as well as he's done, and I think he's now the third highest top scorer for Everton in Premier League history after Lukaku and Ferguson. I don't think he's hit double figures for about 4 seasons now, and as good as he is on his day, he's probably the most aerially dominant centre forward in the Premier League. Those days have been too few and far between, whether it's been the injuries, and to be fair, he actually played a lot of games last season under Dyche. That was the one time he sort of got himself fit again. Or whether it's just been for the sort of the dry periods. Obviously, it was 20-odd games, was it, last season without a goal, and then he had a big drought this year before he ended that against Tottenham. Not getting into double figures for about 4 years now. That's just not good enough for the main striker at Everton. And going forward, Everton do need somebody, but like you saying, it's obviously going to cost you a lot to replace him. So it's a big decision going forward, and because you want a new stadium and all that goes with that, you want somebody you can depend on to be, you know, your regular threat up front and leading the line. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, then it just hasn't happened enough for Dom. Although he has been, I don't go along with these people who have sort of criticised him. He's put his body on the line in terms of he's sort of delivered at big moments for Everton, to be fair.
I know our colleagues Joe Thomas and Tony Scott have trying the best to talk up Liam Delap to Everton, but even Liam Delap, who is obviously going to be, well, just getting relegated with Ipswich, he's looking at like 30 million, and even some of the bigger teams are looking at him, aren't they? It's the market is going to be extremely tough to find that striker who can get you 15, 20 plus goals a season.
I think he would be ideal because of the money involved, 30 million. You just hope, like, obviously being Evertonian, I don't want to downplay the size of Everton's, the club of that Everton's size. Really, it's if you know your Man United and Chelsea's. Is he ready? He could well be ready for that. But look what's happened to the last 2 young lads who've gone to United up front. You know, Shirky got booed off, and I know he's had a bit of a renaissance since. Hoyland hasn't scored in God knows how long, and they prefer Harry Maguire up front. And like Chelsea, like, yeah,
it worked for him.
Yeah, it worked. Absolutely, yeah, he is absolutely. But like Chelsea have got through so many players, and I don't want to say Liam Delap should use Everton as a stepping stone, but new stadium, new manager, a lot of optimism. It's a massive football club. Rather than go there and maybe risk going into one of those bigger clubs and then maybe not playing as much. I think Joe said it in his piece today, like what an exciting prospect that is. Come to Everton, be the new number 9, the new centre forward in the new stadium. I'd hope he'd be interested in that, but it depends on who's advising him, doesn't it? It depends on what he wants, because I'm sure he could probably get more money at some of these other clubs and maybe a fast track to Champions League football. But as I said, then it doesn't always work out like that.
No, it doesn't. I think the thing is, it's whether that player backs himself to be able to break into it, like a Manchester United, who are, you know, having an appalling season,
and
by
need
the
a
way.
centre forward, don't we?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what we're up against. Just going back to Don Paul. I don't know what you think about this, whether you agree. I think Everton have looked a lot more of an attacking threat since Calvert-Lewin has been out the team. And I don't know whether you put that down to just because it's coincided with David Moyes coming in, change of tactics, change of approach, or is it literally just the Calvert-Lewin has come out injured, we've thrown Beto in, and Beto looks a little bit more of a player who can obviously get on the shoulder of the last defender, through balls, you know, the amount of times he's had the ball played into his feet, running onto it, and obviously he scored a couple, he's missed a couple. It was very rare that you saw Dom in that position. But again, does it come down to the change in manager?
Interesting one, isn't it? Yeah, because we have looked more of a threat compared to when Dom was in the team. But I kind of get the feeling that might be tactics as well. I think the big thing that Moyes recognised, didn't he? Because even when Beto played, the rare occasions he got a chance on the Dyche, he still played him like a Dominic Calvert-Lewin, didn't he? And we all know, even though he's got much better as the season's gone on, his hold-up play and his touch are probably not Beto's biggest strength. But I remember the Leicester game, it was like, oh wow, we're playing balls down the side and in between the fullbacks. And I just get the feeling Moyes would have got more out of Calvert-Lewin as well. I really do. But I think we've always had this traditional number 9 in Everton, haven't we? And I think we like it as supporters, I know I do. But I do wonder if we had, I know this is never going to happen, but say an Ollie Watkins up there, you know, like an improvement on Beto and maybe an improvement on Calvert-Lewin. I just wonder if this summer might be the time to change that a little bit and go for something different. I still think Calvert-Lewin would have thrived in a Moyes side, but there's no question about it. We've shown, haven't we, for the large part, that we can move on. We can move on without him, kind of thing. And I'm not completely convinced by Beto yet, to be honest. But he's done well. He's done really well. I
mean, Calvert-Lewin, prior to Moyes coming in, did look a frustrated, forlorn figure. Let's face it, didn't he? He was, you know, clearly annoyed at how the team was, approaching games and how he was being utilised, and anyone would struggle to score goals in a Sean Dyche team, I guess. Let's move on then, Chris. I think we discussed this on Wednesday with Tony. Now that we are mathematically safe, we just feel like the season could just fizzle out because there's still plenty of games left. We know it's all systems go for the final Goodison game, but what have we got? Chelsea, Ipswich, Fulham, and then Southampton. So it's still a big chunk of football still left to play for. Does Moyes now just start experimenting and keeping players on the toes, keeping players motivated by saying, well, you're not necessarily guaranteed a place in this team towards the end of the season? Because let's face it, it's not as if like players got to continue top form for international within like a tournament this summer. And we'll come on to Chelsea, but they've certainly got a lot to play for towards the end of the season. So it's going to be a tough game, isn't it, tomorrow?
Oh, definitely tough. Obviously, it's the ground where Everton have gone longest without a Premier League win. Even longer than that trophy wait. November '94, Joe Royle's first away game in charge. Paul Rideout's header.
Does the FA Cup penalty shootout not count as a win, though?
No. Okay, Premier League win. I said, that was under Moyes as well, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's an opportunity to get that monkey off the backs, not just for David Moyes, for Everton Football Club, because there's been a lot of other managers have failed with Everton to get the 3 points there. So that's your first motivation. You've also got the fact that you've got this mini league now, which Everton are currently top of the mini league, but they're only 2 points, off West Ham, who were 17th. So currently 13th. There's 5 clubs in close proximity to each other. You want to sort of finish as high up as that as you can, because obviously not just with the Premier League, the prize money as well, just for your own personal pride. It looks a lot better if you finish 13th than 17th. And also, you're obviously playing for your Everton futures. Did David Moyes going to be chopping and changing this summer, forging a new squad, a new team going forward, and you want to be part of that. So yeah, I think that there's plenty to play for. I wouldn't be. I think Moyes will be very determined to make sure the season doesn't fizzle out, and where he is free to sort of experiment now if he wants to do or try a few things. He's still going to be determined to get those results.
Just a couple of questions or comments from people watching. James Graham, Paul says, I'd be worried if Moyes is even considering keeping Dom. Would you be worried?
I wouldn't be worried because, as I say, I think he's still Everton's best centre forward, and what I witnessed to Brozier on Saturday, I think that was a really big fail of an audition from Brozier. I was really disappointed. I know it was hard against City who just keep possession, but I just don't think he did anywhere near enough for me that day. It's just, if maybe in a different circumstances, say just goodbye to Dom and I'd be fine with it. And I would be fine with it anyway, but I just think there's so many areas. There's probably 7, 8, 9 maybe players who are going to be needed in. So I think Calvert-Lewin, if he was to sign a deal which didn't really, hamstring the club too much financially, I could accept him staying. But I know a lot of people who don't rate him or want to see the back of him. So I take the point of view. I just think it'd be one less worry for me, because I still think if Brozier goes back, Moyes didn't even play Schmidt, did he, in the squad on last weekend?
Described as tactical.
Yeah, so that's a decision he's made purely not to include him. I imagine it'd be different this weekend because Brozier's can't play against his parent club. I still think we need a new centre forward, and that would be including Beto and Calvert-Lewin at the club, because I think we need freshening it up there. I wouldn't be against him staying, but equally, if he went, I'm okay with it.
Terry Dactyl says Beto is average and we need the temp up. Would you describe Beto as average, or is he above average?
I think that's fair enough, really. Obviously, you got that purple patch in February. Was it 5 goals in 4 games? But then he hasn't scored since. I think what Beto does, things happen, don't they? He asks questions, but yeah, I think whether it's Calvert-Lewin or Beto, I would want an upgrade in that area going forward. Yeah, so I think that's fair enough. I mean, I'd want to be seeing more quality in that area.
Let's move on to Chelsea then before we do finish off in the last 5 or 10 minutes. At one point, Chelsea were challenging for the title.
Yeah.
I think they were like top, and then they kind of they were one of the ones challenging for Liverpool, but obviously just completely dropped off.
Yeah, I think it was the reverse game, wasn't it? I remember, was it around Boxing Day or it was Christmas game, wasn't
it?
It was
in December anyway, wasn't it?
I think if they would have won, they would have either gone top or gone within a point of Liverpool, and then completely fell up. I know they've picked up a little bit lately, haven't they? Got a big win last weekend at Fulham, but they've really fell off, haven't they? But they've got a big game in the cup coming up, haven't they, on Thursday? But I think the 12:30 kickoff will probably help them because they'll have enough time to prepare for it. Yeah, it's long overdue, isn't it, that we go down there and we do something, and say the memories still of that 6-0 are still fresh in the memory. Like of probably one of Dyche's low points.
It was the low point.
It was the low point, wasn't it? What gives you confidence is that we went to Forest, recently and picked up a really big win there. But I think what you were talking about there, I think obviously it even felt that against City, didn't it, on Saturday? And I don't think City helped by the style of football, because it's a bit boring, isn't it? I know it's effective, and I think in the end they were probably just about worthy winners. But it wasn't an amazing atmosphere there. It felt like a 12:30 kickoff. But I think what we've got to try and do is I think we've got to try and finish the season as high as possible, because you want to we've had such a good momentum, haven't we, since Moyes has come in? It'd be I think the bare minimum we need to win the 2 home games, Ipswich and Southampton. And I'm looking for at least one more win from these next 2 away games, from Fulham and Chelsea. I think Newcastle on the last day will be very, very difficult if they're going for Champions League football. But the pressure's on Chelsea tomorrow, isn't it? That race for the top 4, top 5, is it now, isn't it, with Champions League? It's fierce, and Chelsea need the points, but let's hope we go there and kind of spoil the party a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, Chris, see, Paul just mentioned there they are in a semi-final, the Europa Conference League. But you would fully expect them to be, the priority would be to qualify for the Champions League, even over winning a trophy. So just looking at the table now, they are 3 points behind Forest. So it's all to play for, isn't it? That is literally the only thing left to decide now of any matter in the league.
Yeah, it's a big, but obviously it's a big pot, isn't it? To get in the Champions League, especially obviously all the money that Chelsea have spent, and the way they've done it with the long contracts and spending the big money. They, from a financial point of view, they need to get themselves in the Champions League. So yeah, it is a big motivation for them, and they've probably got a strong enough squad to be able to compete on two fronts and the European sort of challenge as well. So yeah, they'll be up for it. But it's like I said, it's high time that Everton change that, because we've probably been saying that every time they go there. What they've had quite a lot of draws. I think they've had about 13 draws in that sequence or something. So they've not always been pummeled there, but yeah, they need a change. We've got Matt Jones coming with us, Marathon Man Matt Jones. Shout out for him if you want to sponsor him. He's running the London Marathon on Sunday, so he's actually helping Joe and I out in the press box at Stamford Bridge on Saturday. We've got a bit of assistance there. You'll see how it's done at the sharp end, and before he tackles the marathon course the next day. So yeah, maybe Matt can be the lucky charm for us.
I forgot to ask, what's the travel arrangements? Are you staying over? Are you getting a train?
No, we're train on the day, but Matt, being the athlete that he is, I think he's
running to London,
No, he's not running to London. He's not peaking too early. No, I think he's making sure he gets himself a nice, a good night's sleep on the Friday. So whereas Joe and I are obviously up at Dick Docks on the Saturday morning, early outdoors, joining the fans on the early train. I mean, I don't know what time Joe's going to get up, too much Birkdale and not enough Kirkdale for coming in for that one. So yeah, early start for us. But I think Matt, I don't know, our exes don't stretch that far to an overnight stay on the Friday. But I don't know where he's got himself shacked up.
So you're back the Saturday day as well.
Yeah, all in the day for us. Yeah.
Oh well, that's a plus, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess we'll just move on to team selection and predictions, Paul. Obviously, we haven't got any updates regarding injury news, but we know Tarkowski went off injured against City. Didn't look good. Rumours that his season's over, to be honest. Or reports.
It looks it, then immediately he signalled to the bench, didn't he?
Which is a shame because, like Chris said earlier in the pod, he's played virtually every single game. And
every Premier League game, yes.
A stalwart even. Despite maybe a little bit of criticism from me, I'm never going to criticise him ever again because of obviously what he did at the derby. But yeah, it's a big blow. But we do have cover. But what is the cover?
Sadly, not Michael Keane. I think he's Michael Keane. I think he's a pretty solid Premier League centre-back. But when he makes a ricket, he really makes a ricket, doesn't he? And I think I felt for him on Saturday because, you're coming in from a long time on the cold, on the sidelines, coming in from the cold, and City around that time were just beginning to get the tails up. Kovacic came on up the tempo. Doku certainly did that. So there's a lot of, I do have sympathy for him. That's not an easy situation to come into. But he had a very bad half an hour. There's no question about that. I don't think any of the subs did particularly well, in not just to blame Michael Keane. But I think if Michael Keane had 2 years left on his contract or a year on his contract, and I don't think anyone would have any major complaints him being a third, fourth true centre-back, because again, that's another position. Talked about earlier about the forward situation. If Michael Keane leaves as is expected, O'Brien comes in, Tarkowski, I think it's in his last year. There's obviously question marks about Branthwaite's long-term future. We're going to need another centre-back. So if Keane wasn't in that situation, I'd probably say you can understand why he'd play on Saturday. But for me, Nathan Patterson's got to start at right back. He has got a contract. Right back's another one, going forward. Yeah. Will Seamus, will Ashley Young still be here next season? We don't know. We need to know who the long-term right back's going to be. That's a massive position to fill. So I'd be playing Patterson. I was quite surprised he didn't come on against City, but I know Moyes said after the game, tactically there was a reason why he did that, and I believe that. It's not just this case of like taking one player and putting another, and he felt Keane was the best option. But to me, on Saturday, Patterson's got to start at right back with O'Brien in the middle with Branthwaite.
It's going to be an interesting dynamic if that does happen, Chris, because O'Brien has cemented himself as Everton's right back, even though that is a weird situation considering the size of him, his build, and he came in to be Everton's centre-back. Now that if Moyes does choose that, it's going to be really interesting to see how he performs with Branthwaite, because if we have a disaster, hopefully we don't, but I'm saying if we do have a disaster, it's kind of like, well, that that's meant to be our, first choice centre back pairing, for the future.
Yeah. What did I call him after West Ham? The Cork Cafu. And there's another one of mine. The biggest right back you've ever seen in your life, isn't he? But he can shift, and he's got a goal in him. He's done so well, but surely going forward, as Moyes has sort of admitted himself, he remains very much a centre back. So I'd like to see him alongside Jared Branthwaite on Saturday. For the reason Paul just outlined, to be fair to David Moyes, it was the least disruption to bring Keenan in that game. But he had a tough time. So, yeah, let's see Jake O'Brien in the middle alongside Branthwaite, see what that's like. Who knows? That could actually be the club's long-term partnership going forward. It'd be great if Jared Branthwaite gave another year's service to Everton at the new stadium. I think he should do, personally. So, see those two together, certainly imposing, won't he? 6'6" and 6'5" between, and have those two in the middle. And as Paul also mentioned, obviously it gives Native and Patson a potential opportunity at right back to show what he can do, because he did well, to be fair, filling at left back when Mikalenko couldn't play, but against Arsenal. So give Patson a run out in his favoured role, and Jake O'Brien a run out in his favoured role.
And I guess the other question will be up front, because we know you mentioned there Broja can't play. Does Beto come back in, I guess, and keep his place from the past couple of weeks, or does Schmitty just get a go? I mean, people are kind of desperate for Schmitty just to get a go, just see what he can do. Tough one though against Chelsea, won't it?
Yeah, I think I'd be more comfortable if he was going to do that against Fulham, or maybe even Southampton, or even Fulham. Ipswich, Fulham, or Southampton. I think that's a tough one. I think I only seen the highlights of the Forest game, but Broja supposedly did pretty well, but again, I think he didn't do himself any favours last weekend. I think Beto comes back in. I think he's done enough. I know the goals have dried up a little bit, but I think he's exceeded our expectations, hasn't he, since Moyes has come in. And I think, as Chris says, he still makes things happen. So for me, he'd be starting there. Schmitty's just a really interesting one, isn't it? Because it's clear that Moyes is having a look at players now. He's put Iraboon in, took him back out. I wonder if McNeil's fit enough soon enough to start maybe another week or so. He's definitely not experimenting, but he's looking at players, isn't he? And if Schmitty doesn't get a go before the end of the season, I think that speaks volumes, doesn't it? You wonder then maybe he'll have to go out on loan, or, because he's not played loads of football since he came here.
Yeah, I think just going back to the Forest game when Beto came on, for Broja, who did okay, I felt like Beto was a bit of the catalyst for the win. Like, just in terms of stretching Forest. Now, I know Forest were going for the win, so they were obviously leaving gaps open, but that's perfect for Beto, isn't it? That style. Yeah. I know it was Decore was the one who scored, but for all the criticism that Beto gets, we know he's not what we need, but he's been there for us, and he's helped us along the way over the past couple of months.
I think Beto's Everton's best option with Calvert-Lewin's injured. As for much as Schmitty offers promise, he's still not scored a goal in English football. He bagged a brace at Sligo Rovers last summer and was friendly and got injured. I think that regardless, I think he needs to go out on loan and sort of learn English football, possibly at a lower level, where it's the Championship, or like Harrison Armstrong's doing at the moment at Derby County. For all, he's shown sort of glimmers, and I know he did well in a few games towards the back end of last season. He's been injured for most of this season. It's just promise at this stage. I know we can only get that with experience, but I don't think he's ready to lead the line for Everton. For me, Beto's the best of the options available. Broja's had a couple of chances now, as we said, he can't play at Chelsea. So, it's Beto for me.
Okay, we'll get your predictions in the chat on the live feed. Paul, prediction?
Love it that we win there for the first time in the league in 31 years, wouldn't it be? But I'm going to go 1-1.
I was going to go 1-1. So that's what I was going to say. I was going to go a positive 1-1 because I think it'd be very difficult to go there
and get a win.
But who knows? We did that against Forest. Forest have just been as good as Chelsea, if not better. So it will be interesting. What are you going to say?
Head says 1-1. But why not? I could fall flat on my face here, couldn't I? I say it's got to end at some point, and say 1-0 to Moyes' boys, and it's the perfect 60-second birthday present for David Moyes to make up for him not getting that bottle of red from me later.
Buying a butty instead.
I was going to say, he could open that bottle of red tomorrow, around about 4 o'clock, just after he's
I'll
done
happily give you the money to get him a bottle of red if we win at Chelsea tomorrow.
Champagne.
What are we talking about? A Rioja, something like that? Is that what type of red?
I don't know. I have to find out. I have to do our homework.
Okay, any final thoughts before we do shoot off?
No, I just said enjoy travels. All Blues heading down to Stamford Bridge tomorrow, like ourselves, bright and early. And yeah, like I said, good luck to Matt on a Sunday. They have to make sure he doesn't overdo it. And it's well known, Stamford Bridge, for being one of the more generous press rooms when it comes to pre-match meals. So he'll have to hold himself back, won't he? Unless he's just carb loading the marathon.
Well, you'll have to report back on Monday's pod what you ate and what you drank. We'll be waiting eagerly for that.
Okay.
Cool. All right, well, that is all for today's show. Please remember to give us a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Drop us some 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify. Most importantly, enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. I've been Ian Croll, joined by Chris Beesley and Paul Wheelock. And this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.